the point is she's now passed away.
Yeah.
And Willard, I feel like he blames Ben.
Yeah.
Because he thinks Ben set that up on purpose to kind of get back at him for not giving into what he wants.
Because when Willard turns around after he sees his mom yelling at everyone to go, all the rats to go back down into the basement, he turns around and looks up at the top of the cupboard, and you just see Ben sitting there, kind of staring at him. And I think that's another, how you said, he just assumes that it was Ben's fault, because I feel like every time something bad happens or doesn't go Willard's way, Ben is always there, somewhere, kind of just staring at him. And he's kind of just like, yeah, fuck you, I'm here. Like, you're not getting rid of me.
That's true, yeah. Another kind of side character that we haven't mentioned yet is Catherine.
Yeah.
Which is his, I think, Willard's low-key kind of love interest, who ironically is the one kind of replacing him slowly at his work.
Yeah.
But she also feels sorry for him because she doesn't believe that he deserves the kind of
the treatment that he's getting.
Yeah. So she kind of extends her hand and she's trying to help out. So we move forward to the mother's funeral, where there's nobody attends.
It's just Willard.
So you can tell that they literally have no family left. It's just them, and Catherine shows up to show support, and his I think his lawyer.
I think that the family lawyer or someone who's in charge of the trust
basically shows up and tells him the bad news that his mom had been, and dad before he passed away, had been living off of
Willard's trust fund, pretty much.
Yeah,
kind of the money that they had set aside for Willard when he got older, or when they passed away. Yeah, Willard would have money to fall back on, for the future. But I think he said, from your father's untimely death, all the debts that had to be repaid because of that and stuff he owed, kind of depleted that, and your mother's already she's like foreclosed on the house or something like that. And so basically he said, you don't have any money, you owe a whole bunch of stuff, and you're gonna lose your house.
Basically, yeah, the bank owns your house, so you need to sell it so you can at least get some money back and kind of start over.
Yeah.
And Willard does this really great, maybe the best scene in the film.
He kind of like freaks out.
For me, where he freaks out about what's happening.
Yeah.
He's like, do you get off on this, telling somebody that they have no control over their life when it's not even their fault? Why am I being held accountable for something my parents did? This isn't fair, and then he calms down and the lawyer says, here's my card, figure it out and calm down. You gotta step up and do something and take control of your life. Only you can. And yeah,
I thought that was wasn't when the lawyer leaves, Willard kind of looks out the window and he sees him talking to Mr. Martin, right? And I felt like they're kind of insinuating that him and Martin were kind of in cahoots, kind of, because I think he mentions to Willard, I think 2 or 3 times, that he wants to buy the house.
Yeah.
And I think he mentions it before he even says that he's bankrupt.
Yeah, it's a reoccurring thing.
Yeah.
He just wants the house. So Catherine actually brings him a cat.
Yeah.
So he kind of befriends Catherine, and they start hanging out and stuff, and she feels bad about the passing of his mom, so she brings him this kind of companion pet. And he's like, you know what, I can't accept this, obviously, because of the rats.
All the rats, yeah.
And she thinks that it's weird and doesn't really want to back down, so he says, all right, let me just put him inside real quick.
Yeah.
And then you see this unnerving scene of the cat realizes what's inside the house, which is thousands of rats, and the cat pees himself.
Yeah.
Which it's like, how did they do that?
Yeah, I've never seen that happen before. That was pretty amusing. He's just like, oh shit, like this is it.
That's what's so impressive about this movie is the animal training, and acting. You know, with Ben, and even just like his eyes, and
just the way he is.
His interaction, like his
really good.
It makes it so much more better.
Yeah,
because it's not
like a CGI rat or anything.
No, they don't really.
Effects.
You can tell that they kind of doubled up on how many rats were there with CGI in certain spots, but it's not heavy at all.
You don't know. It's not to the point where it takes away from the movie.
No, it's maybe one or two, and you really have to really be paying attention to notice it. Where were we at? So, okay. So she brings him the cat, he puts it inside, and they go on and have dinner or do their thing. Meanwhile, the cat's being chased around by Ben and these malicious rats. Yeah. And they get the best of him.
Yeah, which was pretty sad, man.
Mm-hmm. He makes the cat sees this kind of
like vent.
Yeah, that he's like, oh, this is my escape, right? And he makes a jump for it, and Ben's there waiting for him.
Like he always is.
Yeah. Snaps at him, and the cat falls and gets overran by
just devoured
by the rats. And, and then you never hear about it.
Yeah,
about the cat again. After Willard realizes he has really nothing to his name, he considers suicide. Yeah. And Socrates kind of saves him and tells him, don't leave us.
Which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. How they got that. Yeah. How they got
an awesome scene.
A touching moment. Yeah. For the film. By this point, Ben and Willard's relationship is clearly strained, and he really wants Ben gone. Then Willard goes to work the next day and is suddenly fired because of now his mom's gone. Mr. Martin feels like he owes the family nothing anymore. Yeah. You could tell he was only hanging on by a string because of the sick mom. And so he says, get your shit and get out. And Willard's begging him. He brought Socrates and Ben with him and put them in the storage room to kind of hang out until he's done with work, I guess. And so Catherine quits her job because she gets upset that Willard's been fired. Yeah, she quits, and so another of the secretaries goes to set up some of the Christmas ornaments, right? Yeah. And which happens to be in the same storage that Ben and Socrates are. The rats are. Yeah. So she sees, she doesn't see Ben, but she sees Socrates. Yeah. She freaks out and she goes and interrupts Willard's and Mr. Martin's conversation. And Mr. Martin, being the asshole that he is, he goes into the storage room and he basically murders Socrates in front of Willard, and Willard obviously can't say, hey, this is my pet. So he kind of stands idly by, and you see Socrates die. Yeah,
that was a pretty sad scene, man.
Yeah, man.
It sucked. Because that was kind of Willard says it a bunch of times. He's like, "You're my only friend. You're like, I would never leave you." And there's Ben on top of one of the shelves where no one can see him.
And there's this kind of looming feeling that Ben could have helped. Yeah. Whether it was jumping on him to distract him, but he doesn't, because he secretly wants Socrates out of the picture. He stood by and let Socrates die, while Socrates actually defended Ben the entire time.
Yeah, because at one point
he would.
Willard's trying to kill him pretty much, and then
Socrates is like, "Yo, what the fuck?" Like,
yeah, Socrates obviously doesn't say anything because he's a mouse or a rat, but you hear the squeaks, and then Willard. You assume that Willard has some type of intuition of what he's saying, or he's just that psychotic where he just hears voices. But he has a conversation with Socrates saying, "Oh no, I'm not trying to hurt him. I wouldn't try to hurt him."
He needs to realize that I'm the boss.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with that conflict between Willard and Ben.
So by this time, Willard has turned psychotic.
Yeah.
Because he's lost his only friend. Socrates is killed. So he basically he goes home, and he recruits Ben and all the rats to basically take out Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
We go back to Mr. Martin's office late at night, and he's on his computer trying to look at porn or something weird. And the rats attack him.
That scene, I thought was
the elevator.
Yeah, the elevator scene when it opens up and you just see all of them pouring out, and then Willard just standing there in his coat. That's super ominous
and iconic. Yeah, I think.
That's something that you would definitely remember, and I believe that was in that one little scene right there was in the trailer, I think, because that's something I really remember seeing.
Yeah. It's a big. I feel like it's what you remember when you think of this film.
Yeah.
Right. So they have this Willard and Mr. Martin have this standoff, and he's like, "What or he says, "Oh, my friends have come to visit you. They'll do anything that I want them to." And he's like,
"Tell me the fuck out of my office."
And you can tell Mr. Martin clearly thinks that Willard's psychotic.
Yeah.
And he basically knocks him down with one of the
golf clubs.
Yeah.
And that's when he takes off down the hallway and runs into the elevator. And
Ben is
hiding just on top of the elevator, and he jumps down and bites him in his neck. Mr. Martin falls down, and that's when Willard has everyone basically attack him. And he's there was a scene earlier when when Mr. Martin kills Socrates in with the stick. I think it's like the end of a broomstick or something,
or a metal rod.
Yeah, and it's covered in blood, and Willard is kind of just cowering by the door. As he walks by him with the blood, and he's like, "What's wrong, son? You afraid of a little blood?"
Or "What's the matter, tiger?"
Yeah, there you go. He says, "What's the matter, tiger? You afraid of a little blood?" And as Mr. Martin's being eaten alive, basically, he's poking him with the stick, and he's saying, "What's the matter, tiger? You afraid of a little blood?" Which I thought was an awesome way to bring that full circle and kind of.
He gets his comeuppance.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, and that's when he kind of. That's when Willard locks the elevator and basically presses it to go back down to the floor, and he says, "Bye, Ben." And then you see Ben kind of look up like, "Wait, what?" And then Willard takes off and he goes home.
Yeah, he was basically he tricked Ben into and he was going to abandon him.
I feel like he just wanted to use him for that single purpose, because he had nothing left, and then
he figured he would go somewhere else, do something else, and so he goes home, and then of course Ben returns.
Yeah, he that's when Willard had basically sealed up everything, right? He kind of tapes down the toilet seats. He what else does he do? Oh yeah, there's a couple of 100 more rats, I guess, that were left behind because he couldn't take all of them, and he ends up fumigating the basement, basically, like a gas chamber, basically, and kills all the rats that are left in the house. And he burns them and throws them into a trash can, and then that's when Ben shows back up, and that's when the police are there too.
Obviously, he's super pissed.
Yeah.
And he wants to Catherine goes to tell him about Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't clean up the body. He leaves the body. So then the cops are, kind of on the trail of Willard.
Yeah.
And Catherine comes to his door and he says, I'm hungry. Let's go get some food. He just wants to get away from the house and Ben, right? And then he comes outside and he realizes that Ben has already fucked up one of the tires of the car. And then the police pop up. They park down the street and they say, "Yeah, that's him over there."
Yeah.
So they already want to question him, and he gets nervous and he runs back into the house. And that's when they basically the conclusion happens. The standoff between him and Ben.